as we settle into this time of remembering why we've come. Time in our shared journey of entering the space of loving kindness. I invite you to let your body settle into a comfortable stillness. Hopefully all of those different parts have arrived now. Your eyes can be closed, or you can just let your gaze soften and look a little bit in front of you. Sense the soles of your feet connecting you to the ground beneath you. And imagine you're sending roots to the earth. Roots that connect gently, completely to all of those here in this space. All of those whose lives touch yours. And notice your breath moving. Breathing in the belly, in your chest. Breathing in your nose and out your mouth, or however your body comfortably settles into its own rhythm. Let an image of you come to your mind, as though you are sitting in a chair or across a table from yourself. And in this moment, sense your sorrows and your losses, and say to yourself, this person knows suffering. And now, sensing the sorrows of your own heart, simply radiate loving kindness to yourself. Open to divine heart, knowing your true nature as an unrepeatable expression of God. And send yourself these blessings. May my heart be open to the loving kindness that I am. May I be set free from all suffering, all illusion of separation, all fear and worry. May I be happy and at peace, fully aware that I am of infinite spirit. Filled with self-compassion now and awareness of your true identity as an expression of the infinite I am. Let the feelings of being love and compassion deepen. Expand your awareness of the presence of God the Beloved as near to you as the image in your mind of those you love, those you're sitting next to. You know they're suffering too in an instant. And so connecting your heart and intentions to these loved ones, offer them these blessings. May you know your true self as loving kindness. May you be free from all suffering, all fear and worry. May you embrace the divine essence of yourself and all beings completely. May you be happy and at peace, fully aware of infinite Spirit's presence. Awakened now to God within, to the beloved beside us, begin to sense the vastness of the cosmos, the awesome power of the infinite ground of your being. And from this awareness of infinite being, sense all the places and people and beings that are suffering. Sense this world that so deeply yearns to know its true nature, to be at peace. And let the vastness of loving kindness reach out to all beings in need of healing, especially those in most need of it in this moment. As you share these blessings, may the hearts of all beings be open and spacious. May all beings be free of their suffering, healed of their suffering, and free from all that causes fear and worry. May all relate to each other with kindness and love, living in harmony and peace. May all know the deep joy of living awake to our oneness of being with all that is, oneness with all that was, and oneness with all that will be, in the only moment that ever is, the present moment. And so it is. Amen. I do have a mic. Did I forget to turn it on? Okay, it's on. It's on. So, where do you find your heart today in that landscape of the heart? In the sorrows of the world? People suffering from the effects of Hurricane Helene? People who are hungry? Living in areas where war and violence is their daily norm. Maybe you have worries and tension about our own political climate as we approach what feels like a pretty momentous election this year. Maybe you have sorrows close to home, friends and loved ones who are suffering illness or injury, our worries and grief and losses, those things that meditation and prayer might give us a little bit of space around, but they don't make those losses go away. They're still with us. Maybe your heart is in the landscape of joy. Joy at the beauty of our world. Upstate New York in autumn is magic. A morning like today that started with fog and then opens to sunshine and the leaves turning their colors. It's breathtaking. Joy and pleasure at the gift of music and art, and the way that all of those art forms lead us back into a sense of who we are. Poetry, writing, a good story, a good limerick. The beautiful gift of the sounds that come from our music team every week. Finding delight in the simple pleasure of a good cup of coffee, one of my primary sources of joy. Or taking a walk with a friend, or watching the way the sun streams in through a window. We've got people here in the sanctuary who are lit up in the sun coming in the window over here. Sharon Salzberg, in an interview in the November-December issue of Spirituality and Health, which is now the new Unity magazine, reminds us that life is change. Life is change. How many of you love the fact that life is change? Yeah, only Jerry Patel raised his hand. Are we surprised? No. Most of us do change like this, gripping. So the interview is awesome, and I do invite you, if you don't get the magazine, to check it out. We do have we will have a couple more copies in the library. But here's a little bit of what she says, because she teaches loving kindness, as you may be familiar with her name, Sharon Salzberg. So she says, I teach loving kindness meditation, and people often say to me, why should I have loving kindness or compassion for the person who doesn't think people like me should exist? Good question. It depends, she says, on our notion of what loving kindness and compassion are. If it means submitting and taking it, then it's ridiculous. Why get up in the morning to cultivate that? But if you see it as a source of strength where your own self-worth is going to insist on boundaries, then that's a more correct interpretation of loving kindness. Loving kindness directed at ourselves first. Ultimately, she goes on, one sense of safety lies within because there are no guarantees. A benefit of meditation is a sense of cohesiveness, of self-integration. So cohesiveness with all of those parts, Ursula, that you know, right? We come in the morning, it's like, oh, I'm still thinking about, did I put that load of laundry in? All of those ways that we can feel fragmented. Or that I show up in one way with this group of people and this way with another group of people. Meditation can bring us to that sense of inner cohesiveness. Meditation, she writes, gives you a greater ability to ride the wave of change. Not that you don't enjoy the ups of joy or feel the sorrow with the downs, but you connect so deeply with yourself in meditation, and then you also feel more connected to others. So connecting to our own joys and sorrows, we connect to each other. That's why we show up here. We experience the reality that we're one. It's often way too easy to just have it be an intellectual understanding. Oh yeah, we're all one. There's no separation. I can say those words. But until we land with the experience of that sense of oneness, I know for me, I either forget that those people who don't want me to exist or that I wish didn't exist are part of me, that we are part of each other. And so in the landscape of life, some of those moments that the daily word of joy mentioned are easy for us to feel that joy, right? They're big celebrations as a family. Weddings, birthdays, gatherings for holidays, where there's laughter and food, and it's easy to feel the joy of connection in that part of the landscape. It's harder when the landscape feels like those rocks are underneath our feet and we're climbing some kind of a cliff and we're clutching by the, skin of our fingernails, that the landscape can feel so daunting, so hard to know which is the right next move. All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain. Such is life. Such is being. Such is spirit. Such is love. How do we come to a place of singing that awareness into every cell of our being? Over the last couple of weeks, talked about the different ways we might approach God in those moments. And all of the things that that tiny little 3-letter word might mean for us. I rest in God as my own self, my deepest I. I am open to the mind of Christ within. I am the light of the world. I am the mother. I and the mother-father are one. I am infinite spirit. In this ever-present awareness, I go about my day. Paul Smith. I rest in God as my own self. If that interface of God being us is accessed in this deepest part of ourselves, how are we doing with that? That's my regularly asked question to myself. How am I doing with that? Am I expressing all that is awakened in me as God, as spirit, as infinite self, not my little Brigid self? Embodying our divine nature. It's the work of growing up and showing up. So how's it going? Look at whoever or whatever most reveals God to you as the great other. Again, Paul Smith. Who is the being that shows you God is love? That love is a verb. I have 2 beautiful examples who snuck in from their 8:30 Mass at St. Vincent's. Mom and Dad are here. They show me. And I know that I show it back to them. We are so blessed with this. So who are those beings that show you that you are beloved? Maybe it is your 4-legged beloved who looks at you with those soft eyes of love. A dear friend, a beloved partner. Who shows you that you are the beloved and you are beloved by the beloved? To encounter the holy in the ordinary is to find God in the liminal, in spaces where we might subconsciously exclude it. Cole Arthur Riley. How do you encounter the holy? That vastness, that mystery, that principle, the ground of our being. And what happens to our experience of God when we're paying attention to each other, to the voice of God within, to the infinite universe, as Cole Arthur Riley writes, the infinite universe revealed in the night sky and in the soap bubble in your sink. How are you encountering the holy? And then, how is it asking you to show up in the world? Because as we know, we say every week, the spiritual awakening of all, it is not just to feel good about ourselves. It's to recognize that whether we're in a moment of feeling great about ourselves or feeling like I admitted last week, I was not feeling great. It is about showing up despite what the emotional landscape of our heart is that day, and knowing that we are of God. And we are of each other. And how does grief then, landscapes of grief, landscapes of the heart, how does grief break us open to the depth of our own I am, infinite spirit? How does grief open us up? How do we encounter the holy in our own heartbreak? Leonard Cohen and Rumi, the wound is where the light comes in and shines out. When my resistance is futile moment comes and I am laid low by my own grief and heartbreak, and I surrender to the flow, to knowing I cannot control an outcome. When my heart cries out in that moment, God beside us is there, in the eyes of someone from my community, from my family. Sometimes even if I'm looking at the mirror, remembering. We are here to walk each other home through all of those landscapes of joy, of laughter, of friendship, the simple ways we share that downstairs after a service, having a cup of coffee and a snack together and coming to know each other better. The way when people show up to do a class here, they show up with some vulnerability that amazes me and is a blessing back and forth to each other every single time. Whatever that focus is of a class or a spirit group is secondary, because the gift is the way this community shows up for each other, to come to know more deeply. With the classes and all of those things, simply a vehicle for the coming to know. In The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Francis Weller writes, "Grief and loss touch us all. When we gather in community, the many tributaries of sorrow flow into the room. They swirl around us, touching everyone in the circle. As we come to the end of sharing, there is a dawning recognition that this is our shared sorrow, the communal cup from which we all drink. It is ours to hold and gradually empty. We do this together as we enter healing ground. So moment by moment, choice by choice, we learn to let go of our small self. The self that wants to demand in the landscape of our hearts that the leaves do not fall, the temperature should not plummet, I should not experience this loss or that loss. We want to control all of that. But as we let go, as we choose to enter the presence that is always ours, we enter healing ground. We open to God. We open to mystery, to each other, to love. And so in closing today, one more poem. The poem Opening to Love by Megan Don. As the sediment of the declaration settles, may you find an inner quiet. Take your time. Look underneath and see what you find. A breaking heart, sorrow, maybe even anger or bitterness. Keep looking beneath these. Perhaps you will find a small glow of love. Even though it is small, it can receive all the heart, all the tears, all the false bravado. Love can love them all. Your job is to rest. To rest. Let love take over. Let love take over and lead the way. Let love make all the decisions. When to return calls, when to lie down, when to stare out the window and be grateful for the simple view. Love is here to stay. Be a good host and let it in. And so it is. Amen.